Alright, Richie here with your Week 11 college football review, starting with the Tuesday game between Kent State and Buffalo. Buffalo, they won 48-14. They're 9-1 for the first time in school history. Quarterback Tyree Jackson, he's third all-time in quarterback in Buffalo history with 45 touchdown passes so far. Even the kicker, Adam Mitchison, he became the program's leading scorer of all time. Jared Patterson, a running back, ran for 187 yards and 2 touchdowns. They ran for 358 as a team. Kent State really did not have a whole lot going. They only passed for 83 yards. They only ran for 100 yards as a team. So Buffalo 9-1, 6-0 conference, off to an awesome start. Ohio and Miami of Ohio. Miami of Ohio actually sprang the upset. They won 30-28. Gus Ragland 20-32, 199, a touchdown, a pick. They ran for 158 yards as a team. AJ Ouellette for Ohio, he did a lot of good stuff on the ground, running for 168 yards. But Miami of Ohio built a big 28-0 lead. Pretty much Ohio came back all in the second half. Miami of Ohio got a safety, which was the difference in the game. And Miami of Ohio left their slim bowl hopes alive as they won 30-28. The other Wednesday game, Toledo took on Northern Illinois. I thought this would be close. Northern Illinois destroyed them 38-15. Quarterback Marcus Childers, he passed for 131, a touchdown, a pick. He ran for 58 yards, 2 more touchdowns. They had 2 guys go over 100 yards rushing. Trey Harbison 139, Marcus Jones 103 and a touchdown. Even Sutton Smith, who's one of the best defensive ends in the country you guys don't know about, he led the nation last season in sacks. He's got 8 or 9 so far this year, and he blocked a punt and returned it for a touchdown so far this year. He's got 9 sacks, so he's really good. Eli Peters for Toledo was okay, 26-47, 264, a touchdown. They had a wide receiver, Cody Thompson, 8 catches, 110. No score there, but they just were not able to keep up with the Northern Illinois. Thursday game, pretty big upset. Wake Forest scored with 30 seconds left to beat a ranked NC State team 27-23. Jamie Newman, quarterback for Wake Forest, his first start, 22-33, 297, 3 touchdown passes, no picks. State Surratt, 8 catches, 109. He was really good. Ryan Finley for NC State, he was 35-52 for 374, 1 touchdown, 1 pick. They had 2 guys go over 100 yards receiving. Calvin Harmon, 15 catches, 134 yards. Jacoby Myers, 10 catches, 117 yards. But it just wasn't enough. They only ran for 47 yards as a team, and it wasn't enough to win as Wake Forest got that upset there, 27-23. Louisville took on Syracuse. Louisville, like we thought. Syracuse, one of the best offenses in the country, setting up for a big game against Notre Dame. Syracuse won 54-23, and it wasn't even that close. It was 37-7 at halftime. There were a bunch of turnovers for Louisville. Eric Dungey, 14-27, 192, and a touchdown and pick. Wasn't great. He added 62 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns. They ran for 326 yards as a team. Pretty much Louisville, like they couldn't really do a whole lot. They had some decent runs by their quarterbacks. They did run for 203 as a team, but they could not keep it close, and Syracuse rolled over them. Fresno State and Boise State. This was a really, really good game as expected. Fresno State went up 17-3, and then Boise State after halftime they came back to win 24-17. Quarterback Brett Ripien for Boise State. He's the Mountain West all-time passer in yards and completions. This is Boise State because Fresno State was ranked, and so this is Boise State's first win versus a ranked team in November for the first time in program history, which is interesting. Boise State's beaten a lot of ranked teams, but it's usually early or later in the year. Brett Ripien was 24-29, 269, 1 touchdown, 1 pick, but really it was about their running game. Alexander Madison, 30 carries, 144 yards, 2 touchdowns against a really, really good Fresno State defense. Marcus McMarion, the quarterback for Fresno State, he did have a good game. 24-35, 283, 1 touchdown, and a pick. 24-35 doesn't sound bad, but that's actually low for him. He's the 3rd highest completion percentage in the country, so that wasn't up to his standards. And apparently that's what they needed. They needed him to play his standards to beat Boise State because they lost a close game and they could have used that. Boise State gets that win there. All right, going to the Saturday games. Mississippi State took on Alabama. Mississippi State, their defense played well, but Alabama still won 24-0. Bama, they tied a school record with their 24th straight consecutive home win. Tua Tagovailoa, he was okay, 14 of 21, 164, touchdown. He threw his second pick of the year. But it was a really running game in the defense. Josh Jacobs ran for 97 yards and a touchdown. They held Mississippi State to 125 passing yards to only 44 rushing yards, well below 200 total yards in Alabama. They just really had to survive. You know, as long as they win, they'll make it into the playoff, and they just need Tua Tagovailoa to stay healthy, which he was pretty much able to do. Clemson took on Boston College. People were saying, "Oh, it could be upset." It's fucking dumb. Like, Clemson won 27-7. Yeah, they were held down decently, but Boston College, they have a really good running back, and that's about it. And even then, they held him to 39 rushing yards. Trevor Lawrence had a good game, 29 of 42, 95, a touchdown, a pick, and he ran for a touchdown. They had a punt return for a touchdown. The only points they allowed Boston College was a punt return for a touchdown. And Clemson, I'll shout out wide receiver Hunter Renfrow. He's set a school record with a catch in 38 consecutive games so far. Florida State took on Notre Dame. This wasn't even close. Notre Dame was up 32-6 at halftime. They won 42-13. And that was their backup quarterback, Brandon Wimbush. He was only 12 of 25, 133 touchdowns, 2 picks. That's not good. If he plays against Syracuse and he does that, they will lose, which I think they're going to lose anyway. Dexter Williams, though, they ran for 365 yards as a team. Dexter Williams went off. 20 carries, 202 rushing yards, and 2 touchdowns. Florida State couldn't do a damn thing. They ran for 106 yards as a team. Francois sucks, like I said. Notre Dame killed him. Michigan took on Rutgers. This wasn't really close either. Shea Patterson, 18 of 27, 263 touchdown passes to 0 picks for Michigan. They ran for 193 as a team. They didn't really have to do a whole lot. This game, Rutgers is a terrible team. The only thing I can really say for Rutgers is their running back Isaiah Pacheco did run for 142 yards and a touchdown, but one of them was an 80-yard touchdown run, which is the longest run for a freshman in Rutgers history. But that's literally it. That's the only points they scored, was that long touchdown run. Michigan looks like one of the top 4 teams in the country, in my opinion, and they just rolled. Auburn took on Georgia. I thought Auburn might be able to upset Georgia. And they had a lead for a little bit. It was pretty close for a while, but Georgia then was able to win. They won 27-10, which, you know, they didn't quite blow them out as much as I think people thought they might. But, you know, Georgia was still able to win. They ran for 303 as a team. DeAndre Swift ran for 186 yards and a touchdown. Elijah Holyfield ran for 93 yards. Jake Fromm had he had an average game, 13 of 21, 93, 2 touchdowns and a pick. I can just shout out Ryan Davis for Auburn. He had 13 catches, and his 165 catches is a school record for a career. In his career, he's got 165. But it was pretty much Georgia after the first quarter. All right, one of the best games of the day, one of the games that I was looking forward to. Oklahoma State took on Oklahoma, and this was a shootout. Oklahoma Sooners won 48-47. Oklahoma State had a touchdown pass, a 4th down touchdown pass with under a minute to go. They went for 2 to try to win. They did not get it. But there's this. Let me start out with the low one. Oklahoma kicker Austin Seibert set a school record and a Big 12 record for career scoring. That's just the tip-berg of the stats. Let's go with the losing side. Taylor Cornelius, quarterback for Oklahoma State, 34 of 53, 501 yards, 3 touchdown passes, no picks. 2 guys went over 100 yards receiving. Tylan Wallace, 10 receptions, 220 receiving yards, 2 touchdowns. Tyron Johnson, 11 receptions, 128 receiving yards, and a touchdown. Chuba Hubbard, running back, ran for 104 and 3 touchdowns. He's not even really a starter. Justice Hill usually is. But Hubbard went off on that day. Now let's go to the winning team. Oklahoma, Kyler Murray, 21 of 29, 349, 1 touchdown, 0 picks. They ran for 353 yards as a team. Kennedy Brooks, 15 carries, 165, 3 touchdowns. Trey Sermon, 16 carries, 124, and 2 touchdowns. Kyler Murray, the quarterback, added 66 yards rushing. Marquise Brown, 8 catches, 142 yards and a touchdown. They were just, it was back and forth that they couldn't stop each other. It was what, 34-28 at halftime. It was the kind of game I love to watch and I expected to get, and I got it, and I love when it works out that way. I kind of wanted Oklahoma State for the upset, but it was awesome getting to watch. Anyway, all right, LSU took on Arkansas. It's kind of a ho-hum game. LSU won 24-17. Joe Burrow was okay, 15-21, 195, a touchdown. Nick Brossette ran for 90 yards. Justin Jefferson, wide receiver, 6 catches, 117, and a touchdown. They were up 24-3. Arkansas scored a couple in the fourth quarter to make it close, which doesn't really bode well for LSU. I thought Arkansas could have potentially come out with the upset here. Ty Story was okay. The quarterback for Arkansas, 19 of 38 isn't good. 200 yards, 2 touchdowns, a pick. They only ran for 16 yards as a team. So LSU's defense didn't hold their own. Their offense scored just enough, and LSU came out with a win there. Washington State took on Colorado. A lot of people thought Colorado would win. I didn't because I know football and you guys don't. Washington State, yeah, it was close early, whatever. It was 10-7, fuck it. Gardner Minshew, quarterback from Washington State, 35 of 58, 335, 2 touchdowns. They actually ran for 131 as a team, which Mike Leach doesn't do. Desmond Patman, 8 catches, 103. I'll shout out Laviska Shenault, the wide receiver for Colorado. He had a great start to the year. He missed the last 3 games, I think. In his first game back, 10 catches, 102 yards. But it's kind of about it. Javon McMillian, 9 carries, 73 yards. He's done pretty good, but they were down by too much, and they couldn't really rely on him as much there. So Washington State, they'll stay in the top 10, 9-1, and they won 31-7. TCU, West Virginia. After one quarter, TCU was up 3-0, and then West Virginia was like, "Oh yeah, hey, TCU sucks." Will Grier threw for 343, 3 touchdowns. They ran for 164 as a team. TCU didn't really have a whole lot. Mike Collins was okay, 229, a touchdown and pick. They were held to -7 rushing yards. I will call out Jalen Reagor, the wide receiver for TCU, 11 catches, 150 yards and a touchdown. But West Virginia rolled 47-10, which got Coach Dana Holgorsen his 61st win at West Virginia, which is second in West Virginia history. So congrats to him. And West Virginia is setting himself up for a really big game in Oklahoma in a couple weeks. Ohio State took on Michigan State. Michigan State's got one of the best defenses in the country, and it showed, but they do not have a very good offense. Ohio State ended up winning 26-6. They had a fumble recovery for a touchdown. Quarterback Dwayne Haskins was okay, 24, 39, 227, touchdown, a pick. Mike Weber ran for 104 and a touchdown. They only ran for 120 as a team, though. With Michigan State as the number one rush defense in the country, so that was expected. But Michigan State couldn't do a whole lot on offense. Their quarterbacks combined 18 of 48 for 220, no touchdown passes, a pick. They only ran for 54 yards as a team. Cody White was basically their offense, 8 catches, 115 yards, but that was it. And Ohio State kept their slim playoff chances alive with that win. All right, Kentucky took on Tennessee. Kentucky is who I thought they were. They went into Tennessee, and Tennessee blew them out. Everybody's like, "Oh, Kentucky did good. They are number 11." Nah, man. I've been saying all year, they're going to lose at least 4 games. This is their 3rd one. They could lose to Middle Tennessee next week. They'll lose one, maybe in their bowl, I don't know. But Tennessee beat them. Jarek Guarantano, 12 of 20, 197, 2 touchdowns, a pick. He hasn't thrown... he set the school record for consecutive passes without an interception, and it's still going. They ran for 215 as a team against that great Kentucky defense, quote, quote, quote. They held, Benny Snell was all they had, and he was held to 81 rushing yards. They were held to 77 rushing yards. Kentucky was. Tennessee's one went away from bowl eligibility. Tennessee did hit a Hail Mary at the end of the half to go up 17-0, but it was 10-0, and Kentucky's offense couldn't do a damn thing. So Tennessee, they're 1 win away, like I said. They could win next year. Missouri or Vanderbilt, and they'll get to a bowl. Navy took on UCF. So UCF, here was my stuff for them. UCF, ESPN, do you guys not watch these fucking games? Like, this is ridiculous. I was reading the recap. I watched the game. I read the recap. I usually do. They were like, UCF might be docked for letting Navy hang around in the fourth quarter. UCF was up 21-3 at halftime. They were up 28-10 going into the fourth quarter. Navy scored a couple touchdowns later. It wasn't even a game. It was never a close game. UCF went up and down the field. They would have scored more, but Navy, yes, because of their triple option, held on to the ball more. But UCF had 4, I think, second half possessions and got 2 touchdowns, and then ran. They were on their way for another and ran out the clock because whatever. UCF 35-24. They won. They won their 22nd straight game in a row. They scored 30 more in 22 straight. And Mackenzie Milton, he was 17-21 for 200 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks, and he actually has a touchdown pass in 22 straight games as well. And UCF has forced a turnover in 28 straight games. That's part of their win streak. Their offense is great. Their defense is really good and opportunistic. Greg McCrae ran for 101 yards and a touchdown. They ran for 297 as a team. Navy had 374 rushing yards. Guess what? That's what they do. That's how many yards they had total. If your defense giving up 374 yards in a college game this year, that's not a bad game. And that's literally, they were 0 for 2 passing. That's what they do. UCF, they're gearing up for a big game against Cincinnati. I think this was a really good game for UCF. Their offense showed they can score at will when they have it, which they pretty much did. And I think, UCF, they just continue to roll. All right, South Carolina taking on the Florida Gators. South Carolina had a big lead, man. Florida's defense is terrible. What the hell? They got some stops late. They got a huge interception, to seal the game, which was awesome to see. But South Carolina was up 31-14 with a minute to go in the third quarter. Luckily, Florida scored 21 straight to come back to win 35-31. Felipe Franks wasn't bad, 15-21, 161, a touchdown, no picks. He did fumble early, but he ran for 36 yards. He had 2 touchdowns. He had the winning touchdown run. The Gators ran for 367 yards as a team. Jordan Scarlett ran for 159. LaMichael Pirine ran for 107 and 2 touchdowns. Like I said, they got the interception late, which is what sealed it. Jake Bentley, the quarterback for South Carolina, was 18-28, 239, 2 touchdowns, a pick. They ran for 147 as a team. Deebo Samuel had 4 receptions for 120 yards, even though 89 was on one play. But whatever, he's good. No, he's a good returner. But you know what, Florida, they sucked their last 2 games. Thank God they won. This one, go to 7-3. Maybe they can come out with a 10-win season. I don't know. You got Idaho. They got Florida State. Let's be real. Idaho's the bigger problem than Florida State. I'm just saying. But, all right, Florida got off the schneid there with a win. All right, Texas took on Texas Tech. This ended up being a great game. Texas was up 34-17 with about 6 minutes to go in the game. Texas Tech scored 17 straight to tie it, 34-34. Then Texas scored with under a minute left to win, 41-34. Texas Tech, they were starting their backup quarterback because their starter, Alan Bowman, was out with a partially collapsed lung. Jet Duffy, man, 37-47, 444 yards, 4 touchdown passes, added 80 yards rushing. He brought them back to almost win that game. He's filled in fantastically. Honestly, whoever they go with, him or Alan Bowman for the future, they will be in great, great hands. Antoine Wesley, one of the best receivers in the country, period. Bar none. 8 catches, 171 yards, 2 touchdowns. You should go see some of the catches made. They were fantastic. But it wasn't enough. Texas had a really good game too. Sam Ehlinger, 22-34, 312, 4 touchdown passes himself. They ran for 157 as a team. Lil Jordan Humphrey, he had the game winner. He had 8 catches, 159 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Sam Ehlinger set a Big 12 record with the consecutive passes without an interception. This is a high-scoring game like I kind of figured it would be. I thought Texas Tech might spring the upset, and they very nearly did and came back to do it. But, you know, Texas got that win in the end, 41-34. Wisconsin took on Penn State. This is sort of about the game I thought it would be. Penn State won 22-10. Wisconsin running back Jonathan Taylor ran for 185 yards and a touchdown, but that was all they could do. They started their backup quarterback, Jack Cohn, who was 9 of 20 for 60 yards and 2 interceptions. Trace McSorley had a solid game, 19 of 25, 160, a touchdown, a pick. But Miles Sanders, or running back, he's the one who kind of went off a little bit for 159 and a touchdown. They basically just had to kind of escape with a win here, a hard fought 22-10 win here. Penn State now could maybe, if they win their last 3 games of the year, they could have a 10-win season. Northwestern took on Iowa, and Northwestern, they upset Iowa, but Northwestern, they actually won their division. They won the Big Ten West. The Big Ten West was down this year. Wisconsin wasn't what they were. Iowa wasn't what they were. Northwestern, I figured they might lose this, but if they'd won their last 2 games against Minnesota and Illinois, they would have won it anyways. But with what happened this weekend, they beat Iowa, Purdue lost, Wisconsin lost. That clinched it for Northwestern. So they are in. They're in the Big Ten championship game. We don't know who they'll play yet. And they had a nice win. It was a really low-scoring game. They won 14-10. Clayton Thorson, 15 of 30, 122, a touchdown, 2 picks. He wasn't great. But the running back, Isaiah Bowser, 31 carries, 165 yards, and a touchdown. Their defense played phenomenally. They held Iowa at only 64 total rushing yards. The quarterback, Nate Stanley, he played an okay game, 27 of 41, 269, a touchdown, no picks, but they couldn't do enough. Northwestern, they won. They're going to the Big Ten title game. Congratulations. Nobody really saw that coming. People thought it was going to be like Iowa or Wisconsin or whatever to win that side, but you know what? Northwestern, the rest of the league kind of had a down year. Northwestern just capitalized on it, so good for them. All right, Baylor took on Iowa State. Iowa State's on fire, man. They won their last 5 in a row. They beat this Baylor team 28-14. Brock Purdy, 18 of 23, 230, touchdown and a pick. He's consistent as hell. They won. Charlie Brewer, quarterback for Baylor, 26 of 36, 288, 2 touchdowns. They were down though 28-0, and they couldn't do enough to come back. Iowa State got bowl eligible, and Iowa State is actually in it for the Big 12 title game. If they win out and West Virginia loses another game, Iowa State goes in. And guess what? West Virginia plays Oklahoma in a couple weeks, so that very well could happen. And Iowa just keeps trucking. All right, Akron took on Eastern Michigan. Eastern Michigan was looking for a one more win to get to bowl eligibility, and they did. They won 27-7. Ian Erickson ran for 96 yards. They ran for 252 as a team. Tyler Weigers had an okay game, 15 of 23 for 129. Their defense played really, really well. I mean, they held the quarterback for Akron, Alex Ramar, even though I think he's a freshman. He was 4 of 15 for 29 yards and threw 3 interceptions. They had 61 rushing. They didn't even have 100 yards of offense. So Eastern Michigan, congrats to them. They made a bowl 2 years ago for the first time in like 30 years or something like that. They just missed it last year. They went 5-7, and they'd lost 6 of those games by a score or less, 3 of them in overtime. And you know what? They finally were able to win some this year, and they're probably going to go to a bowl game. Tulsa took on Memphis. Memphis, their offense just went off. They won 47-21. They became bowl eligible. Darrell Henderson ran for 166 yards and 2 touchdowns. Brady Wright, the quarterback, 14 of 20, 184, 2 touchdowns. DeMonte Coxey, 6 catches, 110 and a touchdown. Tulsa, to their credit, Corey Taylor II ran for 117 and 2 touchdowns, but they couldn't keep up with the juggernaut that is the Memphis offense, and Memphis won. SMU took on UConn. Check this score out. SMU won 62-50. That's a college basketball score. That's not a football score. No, but today it's a football score. Ben Hicks, quarterback for SMU, 19 of 29, 276 a touchdown. They had 2 guys go over 100 yards rushing. Xavier Jones, 133 and 2 touchdowns. K'Mon Freeman, 116 and 3 touchdowns. James Prochet, 6 catches, 101 and a touchdown. Then go to UConn. They have their guy David Pendle at quarterback. If they could build something around him for next year. If I'm not mistaken, he should be back. He's a senior. UConn, you're going to be shit next year because he's all you got. He was 25 of 38, 215, 4 touchdown passes, ran for 184 yards and 2 touchdowns, and became the first quarterback in UConn history with 1,000 yards rushing this season. Yes, he's got 1,000 yards rushing this year, and they're not a triple option team. They just had to because they suck, and he's their only good player. I feel kind of bad. Hopefully he does something in the NFL. Maybe he goes to a different position. I don't know. But SMU, congrats to them. They got to the win. They're only 1 win away from getting to a bowl game, which I think they probably should get. I'll break that down in my stat attack later. SMU wins there. Kansas took on Kansas State, the Sunflower Showdown, whatever. I should have looked it up. I didn't. This was an ugly game, but Kansas State ended up winning 21-17 to keep their slim bowl hopes alive. Kansas now cannot go to a bowl game. Really, there's not. I mean, all right. Kansas passing Peyton Bender, 21 of 34, 232, 2 touchdowns. Steven Sims Jr. He is a really good wide receiver. He did have 5 catches, 113 yards, and a touchdown. Kansas State, their quarterback stuff. They didn't really do much quarterback. They kind of ran Alex Barnes. He's a really, really good running back. He ran for 117 yards and 2 touchdowns. The quarterback Alex Delton added 55 rushing yards and a touchdown rushing. And Kansas State was able to escape with a state rivalry victory. BYU took on UMass. They had to go all the way. They were down, then they came back and won. BYU won 35-16. Zach Wilson, 14 of 22, 167, 2 touchdowns. They ran for 221 as a team. They pretty much held UMass. UMass has a decent passing offense. They were only held to 183 passing yards. They were only held to 102 rushing yards. Andy Isabella, the nation's leader in receptions and receiving yards. He had his catches, 10 catches. But really for only 85 yards, so it's kind of a down game for him, quote unquote. I mean, he had 303 receiving yards like a couple weeks ago. So BYU, they're 1 win away, trying to get to a bowl game now. All right, Wendover Lafayette took on Army. This is pretty much all Army. Army won 31-13. They ran for 313 as a team. They actually passed a little bit, 5 of 6 for 95 yards. It really wasn't that close. They're up 17-6 at halftime, and right after halftime they blocked a punt. I think they returned for a touchdown or whatever, but they were able to win and get to 8 wins. They win their last 2, which they very well should be able to. They'll get to 10 wins, which is pretty big for Army. All right, Vanderbilt took on Missouri. This was a close game, back and forth. Vanderbilt was up late, and then Missouri scored with a little bit of time left to win 33-28. Missouri quarterback Drew Lock was 22, 33, 253, 2 touchdowns, 2 picks. Demario Crockett ran for 122 yards and a touchdown. They ran for 253 as a team. Vanderbilt passing Kyle Shermer, 24, 35, 249, 3 touchdown passes. Keyshawn Vaughn had a great game, 182 rushing yards and a touchdown. But it just wasn't enough. They ran for 216 as a team. It was pretty much kind of a back and forth game. Vanderbilt went up a little bit. Missouri came back, and clearly Missouri won. And then finally, they held off a late try by Vanderbilt and was able to win a close game there as they became bowl eligible. Ole Miss took on Texas A&M. This is an interesting kind of back and forth. A&M, they were about to go up like 21-7 in the second quarter, or 21-14, and then Ole Miss had a 96-yard fumble return for a touchdown. Kellen Mond, the quarterback for A&M, bounced back as Texas A&M won 38-24. Kellen Mond was 19 of 28, 236, 3 touchdown passes. He added a rushing touchdown. Travion Williams, the running back for Texas A&M, man, he went off, 228 rushing yards and a touchdown. They became bowl eligible. Ole Miss Jordan Ta'amu had a really, really good game, as he kind of normally does. 22, 35, 373, a touchdown, a pick. A.J. Brown, 6 catches, 127 yards. DeMarcus Lodge, 6 catches, 122 yards and a touchdown. And A.J. Brown set the school record for receiving yards in a career. But it was A&M, as they were able to get, like I said, now they can go to a bowl. Illinois Fighting Illini took on Nebraska. This is all Nebraska. Illinois came back a little bit later, but Nebraska went up 154-35. They're going to be a force to be reckoned with next year, I'm telling you what. The quarterback, A.J. Martinez, 24, 34, 290, 3 touchdowns to 1 pick. Added 55 rushing yards and a touchdown. Divine Ozigbo, I think he's got over 1,000 yards rushing. He went for 162 and 3 touchdowns. He's close. He's 42 yards away from 1,000 yards rushing. Stanley Morgan Jr., 8 catches, 131 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Not even Illinois. Their quarterback, A.J. Bush, ran for 187 yards and 3 touchdowns, which is a school record for rushing yards in a game by a quarterback. They ran for 383 as a team. But Nebraska, they've scored 30 or more in 5 straight. And for all you guys who remember those great Nebraska teams, the offenses in the 80s and 90s, I think they had set records back then with 600, averaging well over 600 something yards per game. Well, look at this. Nebraska's gotten 450 yards in 7 straight games, which is a school record. Not even those great games back then could do that for 7 straight. And Scott Frost is doing it his first season with Nebraska. They're not going to go to a bowl, but I'm telling you what, they're going to win the Big Ten next year. I'm just saying right now. All right, Maryland taking on Indiana. Maryland wanted to get that win to a bowl. Indiana is still fighting for a bowl game. Indiana it was a kind of a back and forth game. Indiana ended up winning 34-22. Peyton Ramsey 16-28, 243, 2 touchdowns. Pick Stevie Scott, really good running back for Indiana, ran for 103 and a touchdown. Maryland, Todd Pilgrim, their starting quarterback, the backup came in, but he was 10 of 13, 146 and a touchdown. He was good. They ran for 353 as a team. Anthony McFarland filled in awesome for Ty Johnson, who's hurt, and he ran for 210 yards. Even Maryland, they had an interception in the game, which is their 10th straight game with an interception, but it just wasn't enough. And now Indiana won, and now they're both 1 win away from bowl eligibility. So if Maryland and Indiana can just win each of their last 2 games, they'll go to a bowl. North Carolina took on Duke. North Carolina, they seem to stay in these games, but not win. Duke won, but it was a high-scoring back-and-forth game, 42-35. It was 35-28 at halftime in Duke's favor. Duke, Daniel Jones, the quarterback, went off. And I'm saying he set a school record with 547 total yards. He was 31-54 for 361, 3 touchdowns. He ran for 186 yards and a touchdown. They ran for 260 yards as a team, Duke did. T.J. Robbing, 9 catches, 98 yards. Chris Taylor, 4 catches, 95 yards and a touchdown. Then you go to North Carolina. Nathan Elliott had a decent game, 27-41, 221, 1 and a touchdown. Michael Carter, 148 rushing yards and a touchdown. They ran for 315 as a team, but it just was not enough to beat Duke, to beat their rival. And Duke went on to win their 7th game of the year. Troy taking on Georgia Southern. This was expected to be a good Sun Belt game, and it kind of was. Georgia Southern was up 14-3. Troy came back and ended up winning 35-21. Quarterback for Troy, Sawyer Smith, was 21-28, 287 and a touchdown. B.J. Smith, running back, ran for 86 and 2 touchdowns. Luke Whittemore had 3 catches for 110 yards and a touchdown. Georgia Southern, they usually have one of the top. They're like a top 3 rushing offense, normally triple option. But they kind of had to pass more. And to his credit, Shea Wirtz. He was 14 of 23 and 192 touchdowns, no picks. They did have a guy go over 100 receiving yards. Wesley Fields, 5 catches, 138. But it wasn't enough as Troy remained undefeated in conference play in the Sun Belt. All right, UCLA took on Arizona State. This is ended up being a pretty close game. But Arizona State won 31-28 to become bowl eligible in Herm Edwards' first season, and they're right there for the Pac-12 South title. They haven't won it yet, but it's wide open. Manny Wilkins, 16-22, 199 touchdown pick, wasn't bad, but Benjamin had a great game, 34 carries, 182 yards on the team. Manny Wilkins did add 60 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns on the ground as they ran for 281 as a team. N'Keal Harry, 7 catches, 100 yards. That's what he does when it graves in the game. Wilton Speight, he started at quarterback for UCLA. He had actually a pretty good game, 26-35, 335, 2 touchdowns, no picks. Caleb Wilson, their tight end, had a phenomenal game, 11 catches, 164 yards, 2 touchdowns. They needed every bit of it, even though they still fell short by 3, 31-28. All right, Charlotte took on Marshall. I thought this would kind of be close. It kind of was for Lewis, 13-10 at halftime. Then Marshall had a pretty big third quarter. Isaiah Green, passed for 170 yards and a touchdown. Brandon Knox, the running back, ran for 116 and a touchdown. They were able to hold Charlotte to 72 passing yards total. Benny LeMay, running back for Charlotte, he was okay, 13 carries for 70 yards, but it wasn't enough. And Marshall won 30-13 as Marshall became bowl eligible. All right, Liberty took on Virginia. Liberty took some shots. They had their chances in this game, but Virginia was able to win 45-24. Bryce Perkins, quarterback for Virginia, threw for 168 and 2 touchdowns, added 89 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns on the ground. Jordan Ellis, running back, ran for 106 yards and a touchdown. They were able to pick off Stephen Calvert 3 times for Liberty, but Liberty did run for 205 as a team. Peyton Pickett ran for 117 and 2 touchdowns. Frankie Hickson ran for 93 yards and 2 touchdowns. Virginia, though, was able to go ahead and win that one. All right, Bowling Green took on Central Michigan. Central Michigan was actually up 13-0 at halftime. Then Bowling Green scored 17 in the third quarter, and they were able to win 24-13. Quarterback Bowling Green, Jared Diggy, he didn't have a great game as he normally can. 13-23, 113 and a touchdown pick. Their running game, they ran for 178 as a team. Their defense was able to hold Central Michigan to 94 passing yards and 72 rushing yards. And kind of an ugly game there, but Bowling Green won. All right, Middle Tennessee took on UTEP, and Middle Tennessee had a really big lead. UTEP scored 22 in the fourth quarter to make it look close, but Middle Tennessee won 48-32, and it wasn't, like I said, it wasn't that close at all. Brent Stockstill, the Middle Tennessee quarterback, who I've been touting, one of the best in group of, NCAA history statistically, 31-40, 352, 4 touchdowns. Ty Lee, 10 receptions, 158 yards and a touchdown. They were able to do whatever the hell they wanted to on offense. UTEP finally woke up later, but it just wasn't enough. In Middle Tennessee, they're fighting for that CUSA to get to the CUSA championship. North Texas took on Old Dominion. North Texas, this is a high-scoring game. Old Dominion ended up upsetting them 34-31. They scored late in the game to win. Let's just start with Blake LaRussa, Old Dominion quarterback, 21-43, 301, 2 touchdowns a pick. They only ran for 50 as a team, but Travis Fulgham had a great game, 8 catches, 155 and a touchdown. North Texas, Mason Fine, 26-44, 242 touchdowns a pick. DeAndre Toyer ran for 145 yards and 2 touchdowns. Quarterback Mason Fine, he set the school record for passing yards in a career. Old Dominion was down 20-0 at halftime, and they came back, roaring back, scored 34 to win, 34-31 there. New Mexico took on Air Force. It's kind of, both teams basically a triple option team. This is about all I can say. Air Force, Donald Hammond in the third, 5 of 6, 145, 2 touchdowns. He added 137 rushing yards and a touchdown. Caden Remsburg ran for 99 yards. Cole Fagan ran for 98 yards. Taven Berto ran for 85 yards. They almost had 4 guys go over 100. They ran for 479 yards all over New Mexico. And then Air Force won 42-24. Pretty much the only thing to say about New Mexico is their punter Tyson Dyer. He set a school record and had an 84-yard punt. But Air Force, if they win their last 2 games, which are winnable against Wyoming and Colorado State, they will go to a bowl. So, all right, Virginia Tech took on Pittsburgh. Man, Virginia Tech sliding and Pittsburgh playing awesome. Pittsburgh killed them 52-22. They're 6-4. They're right there to go to the ACC championship game. This is all running for Pitt. They ran for 492 yards. Quadri Allison, 235 rushing yards, 3 touchdowns. And he set a school record with a 97-yard touchdown run in the game. Darren Hall, he only had 7 carries, 186, and a touchdown. Pittsburgh set a school record with 654 total yards. Virginia Tech could not stop them. They could not score. Ryan Willis, he had a good game, 231, 3 touchdown passes, but man, Virginia Tech, the mighty have fallen, and Pitt is rolling. Purdue took on Minnesota in a bit of a surprise, in my opinion. It wasn't too much of a surprise that Minnesota won, but Minnesota destroyed them 41-10. They ran for 265 as a team. Mohamed Ibrahim ran for 155. Their quarterbacks didn't have to do a whole lot. There was a little bit of some snow in it. David Blau, quarterback for Purdue, 20-31, 142, touchdown and pick. They only ran for 88 yards as a team. They only had 145 passing yards. Minnesota's defense played great. They fired their defense coordinator last week. Their defense played great. Their offense played well enough. They really just ran it kind of as they wanted to. And now Minnesota is one win away from bowl eligibility. Both teams just need one more win. San Jose State took on Utah State, and Utah State, they're the #1 scoring team in the country. They put up 62. They won 62-24. They had a school record 804 yards of offense. They're only the 17th team in NCAA history to have that. They set a school season record with total points and touchdowns scored so far this year, and they still have at least 3 games, because they got 2 more in this game. They might go to the Mountain West Championship game, and they'll go to a bowl, right? So they have probably at least 3, maybe 4 games left, and they already shattered all kinds of school records. Jordan Love, the quarterback, 32 of 42, 491, 5 touchdown passes. Darwin Thompson ran for 140 and a touchdown. They ran for 294 as a team. Darwin Thompson also, he led their team in running, and he had 115 receiving yards and 2 touchdowns. San Jose State, they were held to 56 rushing. I will say their wide receiver Trey Walker had a freaking awesome game. 7 catches, 209 receiving yards, 2 touchdowns, but it was not nearly enough to compete with this juggernaut of an offense. Utah State, put it this way, their one loss was the first game of the year at Michigan State that they lost in overtime, 45-38. Michigan State's got one of the best defenses in the country, period. And this team put up 38 on them. Utah State's good. All right, East Carolina took on Tulane. It's pretty much a close game. Tulane won 24-18. Their quarterback, he was only 12 of 28, but for 372 yards, 3 touchdown passes. Darnell Mooney had 6 catches for 217 yards and 2 touchdowns. In fact, all of McMillion's touchdown passes were an 86-yard touchdown pass, a 73-yard touchdown pass, and a 79-yard touchdown pass. So they pretty much did, like, when they wanted to pass, they were like, okay, let's just throw a touchdown. Weirdly enough, East Carolina Holden Ahlers, I mean, they pass it a lot, but he was 21 of 67. Like, I know the 67's high, but he only completed 21 of them, less than a third of that. They still went for 360, though, and 2 touchdowns. Weird. They had 2 guys go over 100 yards receiving. Trevon Brown, one of the best in a group of 5. 8 catches, 161, 2 touchdowns. Tyler Snead, 5 catches, 124. But Tulane was able to win, and they're only 1 away from going to a bowl. Appalachian State took on Texas State. It was all up in Appalachian State. They won 38-7. Zach Thomas came back. He was out the last few games. He passed for 247 and 2 touchdowns. They ran for 221 as a team. Texas State didn't score till like no time left, basically, to keep from being shut out. They only had 132 passing, 86 rushing yards as a team. And Appalachian State, they're 5-1 in conference, one of the better teams in the Sun Belt. Georgia State took on Louisiana. Louisiana Ragin Cajuns won 36-22. They pretty much ran. They ran for 355 yards. Raymond Calais ran for 186 and 3 touchdowns. Elijah Mitchell ran for 136 and a touchdown. Raymond Calais actually had a school record. He had a 92-yard touchdown run. They were to Georgia State down. Their quarterback Aaron Winchester, he was only 10 of 21 for 121. They did run for 252 as a team, but it was Louisiana, and now they're 1 win away from going to a bowl. Louisiana Monroe took on South Alabama. It was all Louisiana Monroe, 38-10, as they got to their 6th win to win a bowl, and I think they're on top of their side of the Sun Belt for that division. Caleb Evans had a great game, 27 of 32, 367, 2 touchdowns, added 54 rushing yards and 2 more touchdowns. They ran for 175. Demarius Gillespie, 7 catches, 159, and a touchdown as a team. as they held South Alabama to only 129 passing yards, 89 rushing yards, and got a really, really big win there. Arkansas State took on Coastal Carolina, and it was all Arkansas State here. Justice Hanson was 18 of 20. Talk about efficient. 253, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions. They added 173 receiving yards. Kirk Merritt was awesome at receiver, 11 catches for 180 yards. Coastal Carolina, they weren't really able to keep it close. They're still 1 away from a bowl game. I'm not sure if they'll get it, but maybe. But Arkansas State with that now is bowl eligible. All right, Western Kentucky took on Florida Atlantic. Western Kentucky is terrible. Florida Atlantic doing all the great things that they does and stuffs. And Chris Robeson, 17 of 21, 231, really efficient, but really it was a running game. They ran for 315. Kareth White Jr. ran for 163 and 2 touchdowns. Devin Singletary, all he does is score. He ran for 148, 2 touchdowns. He's now 8th in NCAA history with 64 rushing touchdowns. Oh yeah, and if he comes back, he can come back next year and maybe break the record. He's also the first Florida Atlantic running back with over 4,000 career yards. He's just having a phenomenal career. I mean, Florida Atlantic has only had a football program since 2001, but still, like, he's setting NCAA record. He's top 10 all time. If he leaves this year, if he stops right now, he's already number 8 all time, right? And I think by the end of this year, they got at least 2 games, and if they win one of their next 2, should go to a bowl, at least be bowl eligible, and who knows what they'll do there. I'll shout out Western Kentucky in this one. Joshua Samuel ran for 101 yards. Mike Wandine had 10 catches, 112 yards, and a touchdown, but it wasn't enough to keep up with Florida Atlantic. All right, Oregon took on Utah, and Utah, they had their backup quarterback. Their starting quarterback was out for the season. This was an interesting game. I thought Oregon would win. Utah was up 19-0. Oregon ended up coming back to take a 25-22 lead, and then Utah scored a couple late scores to win 32-25. Jason Shelley, the quarterback who started, he efficient, 18 of 31, 262. He added 2 rushing touchdowns. Armin Shine, Zach Moss is their 1,000-yard rusher, but he was out because he's hurt. But Armin Shine went off for 174 himself. They ran for 232 as a team. Oregon, Justin Herbert had a decent game, 288, 3 touchdown passes. Dylan Mitchell, wide receiver, 8 catches, 169 yards, 2 touchdowns. It was a nice game. It was a fun game to watch with Oregon coming back, but it just wasn't enough. Utah ends up winning there, 32-25. All right, Miami kept it closer than I thought they would against Georgia Tech, but they slowed down the triple option for Georgia Tech pretty decently. They only ran for 231, which they're averaging like 350 a game or whatever. Quarterback Taquan Marshall, only 3 of 4, 73 yards. He had a touchdown pass. Miami, they were able to run for 134, but it just wasn't enough. Miami lost 27-21. All right, Florida International. They just rolled against UTSA. They won 45-7. James Morgan, 19 of 29, 291, 3 touchdowns. They ran for 149 as a team. And actually, James Morgan set the school record with touchdown passes in a season. Like I said, they've only had a team since 2001, but it's still, he's already got, 24 touchdown passes now in this season. And they still have, 24 to only 5 picks, which is fantastic. They're 7-3. They're going to go to a bowl, so they have at least 3 games. I think they're still in it. It looks like they're still in it. I'd have to figure out all the conference stuff, but they could play in their conference championship game. Who knows? But he's having a great year there. All right, Rice took on Louisiana Tech. It's kind of a ho-hum victory. Louisiana Tech won 28-13. Jamar Smith, 21-34, 314. A touchdown. He did throw 2 picks, which isn't good. Running back Jaquiz Dancy, 15 carries, 80 yards. 3 rushing touchdowns. Adrian Hardy, though, at wide receiver, went off on them. 10 catches, 160 yards. That's crazy. Some crazy stuff there. They had 3 interceptions as defense. Austin Walter for Rice, he did have 5 catches for 101 and a touchdown. But Louisiana Tech won, and they're in it for this USA championship. All right, a pretty big upset here. Temple, they just went all over Houston. They won 59-49. They were up by a lot. Houston kind of came back and made it a game. But it was a big upset. Houston looked unbeatable. Temple almost beat UCF. They beat Houston. Huge win for them. Temple becomes bowl eligible. There's so many numbers here. Let's start with the losing team. De'Aaron King, 28 of 46, 322, 5 touchdown passes, added 125 rushing yards and a touchdown. They ran for 205 as a team. Bryson Smith, 7 catches, 117, 3 touchdowns. They had 27 yards of offense. And then you go to Temple. Yeah, the quarterback, 14 and 22, 217. Then you look at what happened in the running game. Brickwell Armstead, 30 carries, 210 rushing yards, 6 rushing touchdowns. 6. I need both my hands for that, right? 6 rushing touchdowns in that game. They had a freaking awesome game. They won. They're gonna go to a bowl. I think they're still technically in it for the American Athletic Conference. We'll check on that, but that was a huge win for them. All right, South Florida took on Cincinnati. South Florida, their starting quarterback did not play. They started Chris Oladokun and Brett Keane came in, and to be honest, they held their own. Cincinnati is a really good team. They only had 1 loss. Cincinnati did win 35-23, but it was 28-23 in the fourth quarter. Actually, no, it was nobody scored in the fourth quarter. So going in, they were still only down by 12. They were up by 2 points at halftime. USF was. The completion percentage isn't great. Chris Oladokun, 10 of 22, but for 165, 2 touchdowns. Brett Keane, 4 of 10, 67 yards, but a touchdown. They had 3 passing touchdowns. They didn't throw any interceptions. I think they had a punt. They must have punted or something at one point. Desmond Ridder, quarterback for Cincinnati, 17 of 24, 184, 2 touchdowns. He was fine. The big thing for me was the running back for Cincinnati, Michael Warner II. I knew he was good. I think he had over 1,000 yards coming in, or about somewhere around there. He had 28 carries, 151 yards, 3 touchdowns. He had a touchdown reception, and he was really hard to bring down. Cincinnati plays UCF next week. I think UCF has a really good chance. They should be able to win because, like I said, South Florida with their backup quarterbacks were able to at least keep it. It was a good game. It was close. South Florida had their shots to potentially win. That being and you're gonna go to they gotta go to Orlando. Cincinnati does. Mackenzie Milton's one of the best quarterbacks in the country. If Cincinnati plays this way against USF, if they play against UCF this way, they will lose. But UCF has to watch out for their running back. Their quarterback is good. Don't get me wrong. He's a freshman. He's really good beyond his years. He also added 60 rushing yards. So it's not just the running back. But that running back is tough as shit to bring down. It was crazy to watch. But Cincinnati ended up winning. Southern Miss took on UAB. UAB is the best team in the CUSA, 9-1, 7-0 overall. But this one went to overtime. Southern Miss, even though Tate Wiley, he's the backup. I think he's a freshman. He came in. They only ran for 5 rushing yards. UAB is one of the best defenses in the country, period. They're like top 3 in scoring defense. I mean, they held them, like I said, they were held to 5 rushing yards by UAB. Kez Watkins, one of the better receivers in the CUSA, 7 catches, 109, and a touchdown. They were up 13-0 at this game at UAB. Even though they had a freshman quarterback starting for their second string game, he led them. And he threw 3 interceptions too, and he still led them from behind. And they won UAB won in overtime, 26-23. They're probably going to win the CUSA there, and they're looking really good. Oregon, even when they're playing when they play their worst, they still win and score 26 points. So Oregon State took on Stanford. This is all the Stanford, Bryce Love came back, actually ran for 90 yards, but they passed all over the place. KJ Costello, 23 of 33, 342, 4 touchdown passes, all to Kobe Parkinson, the tight end. 6 catches, 166 yards, 4 touchdown receptions. Stanford was able to hold down Oregon State's offense, which is pretty decent. Jamar Jefferson, running back for Oregon State, did run for 109 yards. Trevon Bradford had 5 catches for 120 and a touchdown. But Stanford won 48-17 to become bowl eligible. All right, Cal taking on USC. Cal going into the Coliseum. Both teams needed to win to get to a bowl game. USC went up 14-0. Cal, after frustrating year of losing to USC, they hadn't beaten USC since 2003. They hadn't beaten USC at USC since 2000. USC went up 14-0 at halftime. Everything changed in one quarter, and about 8 minutes span in the third quarter. Cal forced a safety. Well, USC, their snapper snapped it way over the guy's head. Safety. I made it 14-2. Chase Garber is the quarterback for Cal. Threw a touchdown pass. That made it 14-9. And then Chase Garber ran it in himself for a touchdown to go up 15-14. And the defense was amazing. And Cal won 15-14 to become bowl eligible. Akasi Sejigwea, the running back for USC, ran for 103, but JT Daniels, he looked good on paper, 180, 2 touchdowns a pick, but they confused him. Cal's defense, man, they are good. They are really, really good, and they got a huge win there. All right, UNLV got a really big win over San Diego State. San Diego State was up, trying to go back to the Mountain West Championship game. They had a 11-point lead in the fourth quarter. Then running back Lexington Thomas went off for UNLV. He ran for 133 and 2 touchdowns. He had a 75-yard touchdown run. Darren Woods had 4 catches for 100 yards. Max Gilliam 16 of 24, 237, a touchdown a pick. And UNLV ended up winning 27-24. The San Diego State normally runs. Jawan Washington only had 66 carries and a touchdown. They ran for only 89 yards as a team. They decided to try to go through the air, which both quarterbacks for San Diego State played. Ryan Agnew, 14 of 26, 187, 1 touchdown, 1 pick. Kristen Chapman, 8 of 10, 92 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 pick. Tim Wilson Jr., 5 catches, 123, and 2 touchdowns. But they were not able to stop UNLV. UNLV got a pretty big upset. And the final game of the night, the Colorado State Rams took on the Nevada Wolfpack, and Nevada destroyed them. Nevada became bowl eligible. They won 49-10. Ty Ganji, 28 of 35, 404 yards passing, 4 touchdown passes. They added 232 as a team. Romeo Daubs went for 120 receiving yards and 2 touchdowns. They held Colorado State to 74 yards passing. It was all Nevada there. They were able to get the win and, like I said, go to a bowl game. So those are my Saturday reviews. Check out my stat attack coming up soon.